Amen. Amen. So, I want to get right to it. The bottom line is, we're in the season on this planet where things are going to change rapidly, and people have to decide where their loyalties lie and where their alliances are. And it's getting to the point where the godly and the ungodly are going to have to part company. I mean, gone are the days where you have time to save these people that are wallowing in hell, and you can't climb down there in hell and bring them out anymore. If all the coaxing and all the pleading and all the assistance and all the things that you've done, haven't been successful, it's getting to the point where you're going to have to walk and shine the light and let them catch up with you, because it's getting to be a dangerous game. And like I said, the portal's open and the devil's working overtime. And the best weapon the devil has is he's got an argument to convince young people that there may not be a God, that maybe some old people back in the old days made all this up because it sucked so bad to be them, they just had to have something to believe in. And that's not true. And anybody who has walked a mile in my shoes or walked a mile in some of the other shoes in this congregation, we all know better than that, because we've experienced God firsthand. We know that God exists, and we've cried out to God, and he has heard our cries and has answered our prayers, and we were a witness to that. And unlike the stiff-necked children of Israel, where they witnessed these miracles from God, and then a short while later, they forgot what they saw, I haven't forgot what I saw. I haven't forgotten what God did for me. I know it happened. I was there. I asked for it, and I was delivered. So if you haven't asked for it and you've never been delivered, then you can't really know that there is a God. And human nature, it's just natural for you to doubt the existence of God if you've never seen God in action personally in your life. And I'll tell you, if you look close enough, I bet everybody has had that experience, but not everybody realizes what happened in their life. And especially if you knew there was a God and you asked God to deliver you and then he delivered you, what more do you need to know than that? You asked for it, you were delivered, and it happened right in front of your face. So I think what the big problem is a lot of people need to get familiar with who God is and what to expect from God. And we say all the time, just because you pray for something doesn't mean God's going to answer you right away. God's got everybody's life in the balance, and God has everybody's future at hand, and their destiny is in his hands, and God will deliver you when you need to be delivered. And us as people, sometimes we think it's an emergency. Sometimes we feel desperate. Sometimes we want something to happen right now, but it's not the right time for it to happen. And God is never late. He's always right on time. And even if you thought you should get it right then, and even if you didn't think you should have to wait for it, when it came, I bet it was better than you ever thought it was going to be. I bet it was a bigger blessing than you asked for. I bet that things turned around in a hurry when they needed to mostly. And a lot of times, if you look back on these situations and reflect, hindsight is 2020. And you can look back on these things and you can review the situation in your mind, and you can see where God intervened. And more times than not, you can understand why God intervened when he did and not when you wanted him to. Sometimes things aren't finished materializing. Sometimes things aren't finished presenting themselves. And if you ask God for a premature blessing, what you going to do about the rest? Because it hasn't all came yet. So we've got to trust in the Lord. We've got to follow God. We've got to learn to be in tune with the messages that God is trying to send us. We have to be on top of those memos. We have to make sure we receive the email. We have to make sure we go to the presentation. We have to make sure that we understand what the message is. And then we have to be in tune so we can move to the left or move to the right or go faster or go slower or just not go anywhere at all that day. But God is going to tell us which way to go, and God is going to guide us down a path for success. We have to be in tune with what God's trying to do with us. And it all comes down to the bottom line is some people don't believe in God. Some people just, maybe their intellect isn't high enough to understand, this higher power and what it entails and what goes along with it. Or maybe they've been convinced that there is no God, or maybe they just don't want to believe in God. Sometimes people want to do what they want to do when they want to do it, how they want to do it, and they don't care what anybody else says they should do. And, and that's our free will. We get to do that if we choose. But the thing is, a lot of people are under the misconception that there's only one life to live. And that's not true. And if you understood the whole concept, you would understand what this is about. This life that we're living right now is brief and momentary. It's a training ground. It's a school. It's a teaching, educational process. Our spirits are growing. We're learning the ways of the world. We're learning how to navigate our way through these kind of things. And I tell you, the most important reason why we need to learn these things is so we can help other people. That's who we are. That's what we do. We learn so we can help, so we can provide assistance, so we can help other people move forward. And that builds our spirit. It grows our soul. It increases who we are. It enhances who we are. And it makes us a more workable tool for God to use in his work. And that's what we're here for. We're here to do God's work. And not everybody feels like that. But us in this congregation, those of us in this church, we know about that covenant. We know about the agreement that God made with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and with us too. We know it's a generational covenant. We know it lasts forever and ever. It's an everlasting covenant. When we're born, before we're born, this is what we were signed up for. This is what our ancestors volunteered all the future generations for this mission. And if it's not in your blood, then you need to ask somebody, because this is what we're here for. And so if we understand that we're here to help, and we understand that the life that we're living is a learning experience, and we understand that God will teach us and guide us and get us on the same frequency and move us in the right direction, and we understand that our interaction throughout this life is a series of interactions with people that either we can help them or they're going to help us. And we have to remember everything we learn, because part of the problem that we have as people is that we have to keep learning the same lessons over and over again because we forgot what we learned. And so that's the most important thing. You got to keep your mind right so you can remember what God has shown you, so that when you see it in the future, you recognize it and understand it. And most importantly, you know how to respond to it. And once we get that frequency down, then it's all aboard. We're on the happy ship. We're on our way to salvation. We're keeping our eye on the prize. We're rowing at a steady, true course on our way to see God. And so what we have to also remember is that there's a lot of other people out there that they didn't have the experience we had. They haven't had the wisdom that was provided for us. They weren't blessed to be in the environment that we've been in to know these things and learn these things. And so these are the people that they doubt the existence of God. That to them there's no God, and they've heard over and over again that it's all about manifesting your own destiny and creating your own dreams. And then you hear people talk about there is no God, you're the God. You've always been the God. Your destiny is in your hand. And that's true to a certain extent. Your destiny is in your hands, but the destiny of God is at hand also, and the destiny that God has for you. And I'll tell you, if you go through this world and you go through this life and you don't fulfill the destiny that you were born to fulfill, you're destined to repeat the same mistakes over and over again, and you're destined to repeat the same experience over and over again because you aren't moving forward. And so this life, like I said, is brief and momentary. And this life is a training ground. It's temporary. And the more we learn here, the better our lives will be in the next life, because there is going to be a next life. And we hear all the time about past life regression and in reincarnation. And there's other religions that believe and understand that this isn't the only life you're going to live. If this was the only life, it would be understandable that people would be desperate and they would feel like I got to do it now because I'm never going to get a chance to do it again. And I've got to have everything I can have, because I want it now, because later doesn't exist. It's all about now. And so if that's what you truly believe, then it's understandable that you behave that way. But if you understand that, like I said, this is training, this is educational, this is an experiential kind of thing, then you'll try to soak up all the experience you can and do your best, because it's like you're taking a test. And so when you're at the entrance exam, it's like a college entrance exam, and you're at the exam, you want to do your best. You want to come with your A game, and you want to do your best, because there's a reward at the end. And that sounds shallow, and it sounds selfish, and it doesn't sound selfless and noble and benevolent and all those things that describe, people of honor and valor. But the bottom line in all this is that we're doing this to get something out of it. And it's not monetary gain that we're asking for. It's not material things that we're looking to hope to acquire, for being good. It's that spiritual growth. It's that spiritual strength. It's that connection with God that solidifies your place in this universe, and that your spirit will continue to live on and on. What greater gift can there be to live over and over again? If you really look at the concept of what we're facing here, you could be in a situation where, okay, you've got one life to live, and this is all you get. Go for what you know and do your best. Or, you've got this other life that is going to continue, and you're going to get more than one life. So when I think about, if I want God to bring me a big fat house and some really nice cars and a whole bunch of money in my bank account and maybe even a plane, whatever I want, the material things I want out of life, how would that compare to living lives over and over again and being close to God, that can give you any of those things when he chooses to, but wants to make sure that those aren't the things that are most important and forefront in your mind and on your heart. Those aren't your most desires. And once you realize that those things are desirable, but they shouldn't be at the top of your desire list, then you understand the wisdom and you understand the value of life. You understand the value in what God is trying to teach you and show you. And like I said before, those material things, a sinner and a heathen and a devil worshiper can buy all those things, and they do every day. You see people out there that go that route, and they have those things, and that's like we're talking about in the book of Job. All those people that do all that evil, and sometimes we never see them brought to justice. Sometimes we never see them suffer for what they did and what they put somebody else through. But they will suffer in the end, and we've been assured of that if they don't receive their suffering on earth, and sometimes we do. Sometimes we see people brought to justice, and wow, it sucks to be them, and we get to see how sorry they are that they did what they did, because now they're paying for it. Man, when sometimes people are suffering behind the scenes and we don't even see what's going on with them, because the judgment part doesn't belong to us. We don't get to judge people. We get to look at them and observe them and make an assessment on how we feel about what they're doing or how we feel about their character, but we don't get to judge them. We don't get to decide what kind of punishment they get. We don't get to decide when they get punished. We don't even get to decide if they truly get punished for that or not. We don't even get to decide that. So that's why sometimes we don't see the punishment. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But we know for sure that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done and everybody goes to those pearly gates, we know that the judgment's going to happen then. Ain't no sinners getting into heaven. Ain't no devil worshipers going through them pearly gates. You reap what you sow. And it's all about salvation. And let me make this clear too, that just because they're screwing up doesn't mean that God doesn't care about them. God made us all in love, and he loves every one of us. And every one of us on this phone, every single one of us on this phone has screwed up before. And maybe over and over again. But every one of us on this phone has seen the light and found which road is the road to salvation, and we know which way to move forward. And even though, sometimes we may not step forward every minute of every day of our life, and a lot of times, you have days that you step back, a step, but then the next day you move forward 2 steps to make up for the step that you missed. And it's okay to step back, because a step back is a moment of reflection. And you have to have these moments of clarity to be able to see, and clearly which way you're going, and to be able to reflect on the steps that you've already taken to make sure they're the right steps. And it's not one day you just say, hey, God, I'm on your team. And all of a sudden the message is clear, the vision is clear, the memo is clear, the frequency is clear. It doesn't go like that. It takes a while to work on this frequency with God, and it takes a while to be proficient in listening to his messages and getting his memos and being on the same page with God. And it takes work. It takes practice. You can't just say it one day and all of a sudden it's going to happen. You need to practice it at some point in the week, like the Sabbath. The Sabbath is where we practice these things. And every day we go out into life with that right attitude, thinking about God from the first moment we wake up to the last moment that we go to sleep. And we think about all the other things in between, but we keep God in part of that thought process. And then pretty soon you get comfortable with communing with God during the course of your day, all day. It's like, you hear about how you're supposed to pray 3 times a day. And I feel like I'm probably praying more than 3 times a day, because I talk to God all day. Ain't just 3 times a day at no certain time. Me and God are talking all the time. And I'm asking about what I just saw. And really, God, is that what you want to show me? I mean, we tell jokes and everything. We're hanging out during the whole course of the day. So I don't feel bad if 12 o'clock goes by and I forgot to pray, because I was doing something with God anyway. You know what I mean? And it takes practice. We have to practice being in that frame of mind, and having that in our heart all the time, because we need God. And like I said earlier today, God don't need Israel. Israel needs God. And they said that at the service today. One of the preachers said that, God don't need Israel. God don't need us. God can he's the Lord of hosts. And the Lord of hosts means he's the best at it. And a host is this body, this people that we are, this human thing that's carrying this spirit, through this life, this brief journey that we're on. That's the host. And if he's the Lord of hosts, he's the best. He's the greatest. He's the GOAT. So he can make people anytime he wants. And he can whip out any planet he made in this universe and create life and put it on there. And all of a sudden he's got some new people. So he don't need us. We need him. And he's going to test us to the end, because it's not that he needs us, it's that he can use us. That's what this is all about. We weren't created just to have fun and enjoy life. We were created for a specific purpose, to help God do the work that's coming up in the future. If you think about it, God is everlasting to everlasting. That means it's never going to end. And we heard about him talk about the steady stream of prophets that he sent to us. And so wherever else there's life, there's a steady stream of prophets being sent to them too. And I'm sure the concept is all the same about how God wants them to follow him. And I'm sure he has commandments for all walks of life in the universe for them to follow as well, moral standards and guidelines and foundational traditional values and all that kind of thing. God doesn't change just because he went somewhere else. The protocol is the same, no matter where he is. And so if our spirits are to live forever and we're being trained to do God's work, he has plenty of work for us. He has a mission for us. And so our job is to get all the educational experience we can and eat up all the wisdom and knowledge that God can give us, so that we can apply it to the next life. And along the way, we're going to apply some of these things right here in this world, because we can help people along the way. That's that practice part. We can't just be good at it one day and God says, okay, you graduated from the class. Okay, now it's time to step into action. Even when you go to school, you've got to practice what you learn. You've got to practice the skills in the trade and learn how to apply them. And so that's what we're doing here. And so anybody that doesn't understand that, or anybody that doesn't feel like doing that, that's more of that free will. I mean, we you have a choice. And I tell you, I think, and nobody knows for sure, because nobody's died and had that experience and actually came back. There's people that said they died for a little while and told their brief experience, but nobody has ever come back and said, I asked God all these questions and these are the answers he gave me. And now these are all the secrets to life, and this is why we're here, and this is what goes on after we die. Nobody's come back with all the answers yet. So nobody can really have all the answers, but what you want to do is, while you're here, you want to get as many of those answers as you can get. You want to eat up as much of it as possible, because I promise you there's a life after this, and I promise you God has some work for you. And like I said, it's all free will. You can do it or you can not do it, and the word is spreading, and there's very few people on this planet that don't know God's plan. There's some that don't. There's always some people that are being sheltered, kept in the dark. They haven't received the word yet. But as far as us that have received the word, we've got a choice. We've got a choice to do it, or we've got a choice to not do it. And there'll be a lot of people, when you get to heaven, there'll be a lot of people up there that maybe didn't even go to church. Maybe they didn't have Sabbath service, but they were genuinely good people, and their spirit was a good, wholesome spirit, and they did good things while they were here, and they had the common sense not to do evil things and not to do bad things. They had a good heart, and so those people are going to live another life too, but they're going to start out. Everybody gets to start out in the new life at the level you left off at the old life. It's like a video game. The further you get in this life, the further you get to head start you get in the next life. And if you didn't learn some lessons that God put in front of you, because God's going to put challenges in front of you. That's this life is all about. And I tell you, you should really, really be worried when you stop getting challenges, even little challenges. If you stop getting any kind of challenge at all, and every single day, every moment of the day, everything goes your way, and you don't have to problem solve, and you ain't got a decision to figure out, how you going to do this or how you going to get that done, or there's nobody coming to you asking you for spiritual or psychological help or emotional help. There's nobody's asking you for nothing, and you don't have any challenges. You better start making sure your will is in place and all that kind of stuff, because it's probably really close to the end for you. Because this life is full of challenges, and you're always going to have a challenge, no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in life, no matter what you're doing. There's always some kind of challenge that God will use to help you strengthen yourself. Every challenge is an attempt for you to be able to strengthen yourself, gird yourself. And so that's what I felt like I wanted to talk about, because that's the challenge that we're going to run into when we get out there and we tell people about God and we talk about his works and talk about his marvelous things that he's done. There's going to be people that doubt us, and we have to be sure about what we're doing. We have to be sure about what we're saying. And the best way to be sure is to experience it yourself. And if anybody that hears this sermon, that hears me talking, thinks they've never really experienced, God delivering them, then, I would suggest that either you talk to some people that have had that experience, and you may find, when you look back, that you were delivered and just didn't realize it. Or maybe you should have a communion with God. Maybe you should talk to God about delivering you from some of the things that you're going through. Sometimes people minimize the struggles that they're going through. Sometimes they say, oh, well, everybody else is going through it, so, I guess it's just no different. I just, keep going through this and keep living like this and keep making these same decisions and keep beating my head against this wall. And it doesn't have to be like that. You know, everybody deserves to get through their struggles, and God doesn't leave anybody comfortless. God will leave you a solution. God will give you an option to get yourself out of whatever that mess is that you're in. And sometimes the deeper the mess, the more the struggle, the bigger the effort you have to put forth. But you're capable of putting forth that effort, even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't want to. You're capable of putting forth that effort, because God won't put more on your plate than you can handle. And he knows your threshold. He knows what you're capable of. And so I would advise everybody, and this isn't necessarily advice for the people that are listening now, but anybody that may hear this later, I would advise everybody to try their hardest and do their best. Take your capabilities to their limits. You know, it doesn't make any sense to have, like, if somebody goes out and they buy this Bugatti. If you don't know what a Bugatti is a very expensive sports car that goes very fast. And so if you've got this Bugatti and you're out driving this Bugatti and somebody's chasing you and they're trying to harm you or something like that, and you say, okay, I'm going to get away from them, but you don't put your foot all the way to the floor and let this Bugatti do what it's designed to do, it be fast and get away. If you don't let yourself, your spirit, do what it's been designed to do and reach its full capabilities, you're wasting your time. What are you doing with the rest of that energy? Who's it for? You know, where are you going to apply it to? We have to do our best in this world. We have to try our hardest in this world. And we have to sometimes throw caution into the wind and really step out on faith. You know, and that comes from walking by faith and not by sight. You know, we have to really, truly believe that God has his plan in place. And when we hear these voices and these messages and get these memos and we have to really understand that that's where it comes from. And that's where the faith comes in. If we step out on faith and do God's work, he will bless us tremendously. So that's all I'm going to say about this. And everybody, it's coming time to separate yourself from ungodly people in your life. And let's move forward and let's row that ship of salvation to the promised land. Ask Church God Saints of Christ to please pray for everybody in this world, because it's upside down.